picture isn't very good, the CV is awful, everything, it's unemployable is what we call it, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a status in our application.
Unemployable.
So, unemployable. So
don't have that.
You're unlikely to be hired, right? You could pay some agent, right? Nobody can guarantee you a job. I don't know how they think they can do that.
It's only the person hiring you that can guarantee you
a job. And it's a contract offer. No German employer gives you a contract where if you don't show up, then they're still on the hook. No.
No, why?
Even the contract is conditional.
Hey people, what's going on? Thank you for tuning in once more. Mike here from Immigrant Hub. And today I have with me Shane. Shane and I connected recently on LinkedIn and I've been following his works and he also mine. And today we are going to talk about something very important. But before we proceed, I'd like Shane to introduce himself briefly. Shane.
Hi guys, so I'm Shane, founder and CEO of Work Abroad, and we position ourselves, or we are effectively the Amazon of foreign recruitment and relocation to Germany's high demand professions: nurses, truck drivers, dental assistants, doctors, things like that.
So today we really want to focus on talking about the labor shortage in Germany. I think most of you who follow my content and also Shane's, you know that we talk about the opportunities in Germany, especially if you're coming from Africa. And now, as we know, there is currently over 400,000 shortage of skilled workers in Germany. Is this correct?
Thereabouts, yeah. About 400,000 a year.
A year, That's crazy. Like every year, at least 400,000.
Yeah, it's sort of a figure that is arrived at, subtracting the number of people leaving the labor force from the number of people joining the labor force, right?
Yeah.
Internally.
Yeah.
So as we'll see, we'll get into it, but the number is a bit catchy. It's catchier than it should be. The actual number, we believe, is somewhat lower than that, yeah.
But yeah, whatever it is, that's a huge number, right?
Yes, of course.
That's a huge number. What's interesting now is these opportunities exist, but then it's such a chaos how to get into it. More importantly, it's about the qualification. And then on top of that, it's also what are those opportunities exactly? Before we proceed, could you touch on like the top opportunities there, like the high demand professions within the space?
What we consider, actually, we use the terminology highest demand because high demand has been used before for things that we don't consider particularly high demand. An example of that is information technology.
Okay.
So I was talking to an agent or consultant, whatever I want to call him, who had gone through Africa and who had effectively walked his way through Africa and Asia and collected many hundreds of thousands from hundreds of candidates and promised them that he would relocate them to Germany as engineers, software engineers.
Yeah.
And so he took that money, again hundreds of thousands, took a bank loan.
Okay.
And got a team together for about a year or two and wasn't able to move. I think he moved like 3 of them or something. So that's how difficult information technology can be. Plus, you can outsource it. So that's one that we get a lot of interest for, which we don't really cover. Maybe someday in the future when the market is open to that. But the highest demand professions, as we call them, as I mentioned before, nursing, any kind of nursing, and it's very important to keep the various asymmetries in the demand and supply in mind, because even in nursing there's various types of various levels of demand. Like an ICU nurse is in much higher demand than, but that's a particular it's a particular vital building, as they call it, particular training. That's in a slightly higher demand than, I suppose you call them, general nurses. You have things like radiology assistants, which again is a very particular field, but it's in very high demand. I mentioned before we started recording, today we got Zahnmedizinische Fachangestellte, which is effectively a dentist assistant or dentist practice assistant, dental practice assistant, and those are hard to come by. And if you leave the medical field, you have truck drivers, you have what they call Fachkraft für Lagerlogistik, which is effectively a warehouse technician. And it goes on and on. There's many fields. Mechatronic, Kfz Mechatronica, which is effectively a mechanic.
Could you touch on the key requirements for these positions? I would imagine that they are primarily general requirements that everyone needs to fulfill, and then maybe specific requirements depending on the role. Could you touch on the general requirements?
Well, the most important requirement is convincing an employer to hire you, right? Obviously. So there's a human element or the human aspect which people seem to, sometimes overlook. Meaning the way a candidate perceives getting a job abroad, it doesn't involve them convincing an employer. So they pay some agency, the agency does the conversation or the bargaining, and then their say isn't there. But no, the way it actually works, because, we are handling most of the world, not just, you actually still need to convince an employer. You need to have the human aspect where you go. Even the agencies on our platform who, you need to convince them that so
you're
in
fit
some
for
cases,
the job. You can
exactly.
do the job.
So the recruiters. So that's the first thing. But then you have the German language requirements, which differ from field to field. So in some fields, they call them reglementierte Berufe. So think nursing, think anything in medical, really, doctors, everything. They have certain language requirements. So a nurse, I think these days is B1. It used to be B2.
Okay.
Some fields like doctors need C1 or C2 effectively.
Yeah.
And so the German requirement is a big one. And of course, you need to bring in the reglementierte Berufe, so the regulated professions.
Yeah.
You do need to bring the qualification that makes you one, which is recognized in Germany. So many people in the space say language is the toughest part. I disagree.
Okay.
I think it's the qualifications,
The
right?
recognition of your qualification here in Germany.
Right, exactly. No, so the other way around, having a qualification that can be recognized in Germany for that role, for the Referenzberuf, because you're supposed to already have the qualification,
That's right.
Now, you're branding it about, Germany says, that's a bit strange. What's that paper in your hand? And then, they have a look and see if it fits. There are very strict boundaries around what is a recognized qualification in Germany. So I think that's the toughest part. So agencies, again, we are technologists, agencies or consultants would say, hey, it's the language. But I think anybody can learn a language given enough time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the language without the right qualification, then you don't qualify for the job.
No.
Yeah. But are there also some professions that do not require the language?
Every niche reglementierter Beruf doesn't actually require much. Like truck drivers, I'll give you an example. Truck drivers.
Yeah.
Truck drivers need nothing, right, apart from their truck driver's license.
Okay.
They don't need even A1. They don't need to go through any, no.
Talking about license, could you touch on that exactly?
The truck driver's license, it's C1 and C1E, I believe. And there's 4 of them.
But I mean, can it be recognized from any country? Like if you come with a truck driver's license from Nigeria, for example, would that be recognized in Germany?
So generally speaking, there are schools that in every country now that issue truck driver's licenses that can be recognized in Germany.
Internationally.
Abstractly, just abstractly speaking.
Okay.
I don't know what licenses every truck driver in Nigeria or Cameroon has. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I know Cameroon certainly, and in most other countries, because you need to remember we're not building only for Africa, right?
I understand.
So in other parts of the world, other parts of Europe, other parts of Asia, or parts of Asia, South America, you can bring in your C1, C1E truck driver's license, and get recognized.
All right. I'd really like us to get real here. So give me a typical workflow of someone who wants to use your platform. Now think about me as a candidate. I'm back in my home country. I want to move to Germany. I meet all the qualifications. Where and how does your platform come in?
So the first thing is the average candidate wouldn't know they meet all the qualifications, right? So they'll meet the basic ones like the German, perhaps.
Okay.
We have a lot of people who speak, and that's where maybe we should have, or we'll get to that, where the distinction between a Fachkraft and Azubi.
Yeah.
Right? So can we touch on that before, or do we?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Let's do that so we get it right, and then
exactly
the workflow.
So the 400,000 positions, that the number that is bandied about is, as I said, it's a bit of math, which nothing against, but it's a bit of, it's tricky, it's dishonest math. So in actuality, there are fewer positions, right? And many employers, and to be honest with you, employers still have, the average German employer has no interest in hiring people from outside Germany.
Yeah, by default,
By default, they have no interest.
Of course.
Now, I have my, some people would say it's a xenophobic thing, it's a cultural thing. Of course, I agree. We've had employers ask us, like, Mira, get the religion of the person. So you have things like that when so if you say you're a Muslim on your CV, then, somebody might take umbrage, for instance, right? It's a bit of tricky math, but even more importantly, for the reglementierte Berufe, which tend to be those in highest demand, there I begin to understand our concerns as Africans, where we go, okay, well, I have this degree, but it's not recognized in Germany. So people principally do not know what the process to get that recognized is, right? If you're a nurse, you have a nursing degree from Cameroon, let's say, or Nigeria, there are other requirements. So the WHO has a list of 55 countries from which a German employer or agency cannot recruit nurses. Both Nigeria and Cameroon figure on that list. So nurses, actually, qualified nurses, cannot relocate from those countries to Germany. It's impossible. The only body able to do that is the Bundesagentur für Arbeit, who have no interest in doing that. The reason for that list is because these countries have declared themselves in a state of relative emergency, their own shortage of nurses.
So you can't go there and take nurses.
You cannot go there and take nurses, right? So anybody wanting to come as nurse to Germany or really anywhere in the West from those countries, 55 of them, most of them sub-Saharan African, is it's not doing so. Now there's a few people I know who've come in like that, but they were clearly illegal. It's not even a gray area these days; it's a black area. But a few people have still managed to come in and have their qualifications recognized. But there's a bit of hiding that an agency brought you and then you say, oh, I'm here already, or let's get my qualifications recognized, etc.
When you start working.
Yeah. So just to touch on the original question, there's a distinction between a Fachkraft and an Azubi, right?
Okay.
Azubi is somebody coming to learn,
Yeah.
which is where 95, 99% even of most sub-Saharan Africans, or the category they fall in, and there's just much less demand for that, right? Which is why it's so tough, or that's the perception anyway. If you're coming to learn, then it's just, there's no qualification, and everybody in the world would be B1 or B2 German. It's a competitor for your position, right?
Yeah.
Which is why the agencies or consultants then turn around and charge money,
Yeah.
right, for their services. So that's the thing. But to be a Fachkraft, you need to have a qualification, which is recognized in Germany, at least in part. Then you go through the Anerkennungsverfahren, or the recognition process, which, depending on the profession, can take up to, like, for doctors, it takes forever, basically. It takes like 3 years. But the first step of which is, checking Anabin, which Mira also, you can ask Mira, hey, is my degree recognized in Germany?
Yeah.
That's a paid feature, by the way, because it's my degree recognized in Germany. So university and degree, and she would tell you if it's recognized. And then the next step is actually applying for the recognition Verfahren, which generally results in either a complete rejection, we don't know what that paper even means, or Teilanerkennung with Defizitbescheid. A Teilanerkennung is partial recognition. Defizitbescheid is, I'm going into too much detail. I know.
No, this is good because you get the part recognition, and then they tell you what's deficit, and you need to meet that up.
You need to, over, like, I think 18 months generally, you need to figure out a way to.
And this you can do that in Germany. So
of course,
you come with that part recognition, and then you complete the deficit part.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you're fully qualified.
You're fully qualified, or you have a full Anerkennung, in which case you don't need to do anything. Again, only for reglementierte Berufe. Everything else where it's not reglementiert, whether it's IT, whether it's anything where it's basically people who are lucky enough to come in as marketing professionals, it happens, right? People think it's only, Africans from especially South Africa come in as, upper, C-level executives, so it can happen. It's the same thing. It's the same legal framework. Okay. They come in and, they don't need to get anything done effectively.
So I guess it depends on the field that you're coming from. In some cases, they're not regulated, and then others, they are tightly regulated.
Absolutely.
Now, let's go back to the workflow. So I find out about Mira. I want to use it to, help me have a seamless relocation process. How does it work?
So first of all, you register on Mira AI. As soon as that's done, you have a few possibilities. Now, it's important for candidates to understand that the whole reason for something like Mira AI existing is to get you up to speed with requirements of the place, right? Okay. So, and it's not just German requirements; it's requirements for European employers.
Framework.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So the other day we signed this deal with an Indian state government to bring in 10,000 candidates. So we've onboarded, like, I don't even know how many already. So just send a Mira's number and they come in, and it's the same pattern, it's the same characteristics that we have in Africans as well, right?
Okay.
Where it's just picture isn't very good, the CV is awful.
Yeah.
Everything. It's unemployable is what we call it, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a status in our application.
Unemployable.
So, unemployable. So
don't have that.
You're unlikely to be hired, right? Yeah. So the whole idea with Mira is to get you employable. Bring you in contact, whether it's through agencies or employers on a platform, right? Bring you in contact with them, and then after you have your contract, automate the relocation and make it as seamless as possible for you, right? So, but the first part for most Africans is being employable, right? Yeah. Which means, using Mira to generate your German language CV, to register, everything already looks nice. Just registering on Mira already puts you, because we have, technology that makes it look really nice, like when somebody shows up, right? Just the profile is better than anything that you could ever give your employer. Yeah. Just the profile in our software, right? Okay. It's at least 6 times better than any candidate could ever come up with, mostly. Okay. So, and then, use Mira to generate your CV in German. That's another important factor.
So you upload your CV in your own local language, and then it converts it to the German version. Or it has to be first in German, and then it's optimized.
No.
Or it just makes a CV for you.
So Mira would ask you questions. So by the time you register, she asks your basic information. She understands that, and then she will say, "Hey, okay, and now that I have that, hey, Mike, where did you work last, right?" And then tell her where you worked last, and then she'll ask you, "Hey, how did that go?" Or something like that.
Okay,
right?
just get all the details from you.
All the details from you, and then puts that in a PDF with very nice looking. You can I can make some available for the and then it's all on there. So, but many people have asked for that. Not really. Candidates they don't mind, but many people have asked for the one where you upload and then
it optimizes it.
Right. So the output is a PDF which employers get in addition to your profile. The input is obviously the questions Mira asks you. Yeah. We will eventually have to build in functionality to pull information out of existing CVs, but that is way more difficult than it sounds to build. It's way less, and it's doable. It's just you wonder if it's a good investment of time and effort, right? They'll just say, hey, build a, make a new one, a new CV anyway. So people's CVs are images, an image. It's not a photo of a CV. No, it's like a screenshot of their gallery with
100%.
like this being like one of the, little rectangles there. So, it's not great, right? So it's just, you take that out completely. We are also launching the intake interview feature of functionality where Mira would interview you 5 questions. I think it should take maximum 15 minutes.
Okay.
The very usual questions that you'll be asked the first time anyway. Why do you want to go to Germany? What about the job do you like? Where you're from, what's your motivation, things like that. So that's absolutely key for employers. Again, we are not an agency. Sometimes we act as one, but we have employers on our platform, we have agents on our platform. Everybody involved in that process wants to see videos before they ever meet somebody these days, right? So ordinarily, a recruiter asks you to record yourself and send. So this Mira takes you through a structured interview, max 15 minutes.
Okay.
She stores all of those videos on your profile. She transcribes the videos, so they have the text, the audio that you can read. So that's getting you up to speed. So you have your photo, you upload all your documents, you have your CV, you have your videos in there. The next thing, and some of those things are paid features that I mentioned. The next thing is you want to apply for jobs, right? So you can ask, hey Mira, I want to, what nursing, again, 95% of Africans will be apprentice level. So they can apply for apprenticeship positions. So it's, hey Mira, what apprenticeship positions do you have in Germany for me? She'll throw a few out for you, and then you say, hey, I want to apply for this. So she will use the CV that she generated and your profile to generate an application email with the text based on your profile. So before, it used to be like a neutral text where you'd be like, hey, somebody applied to your position, but that doesn't work as good as actually generating, hey, I'm Mike, I saw you, discover your position on so and so website, specific. Something about like you wrote to yourself, right? And then she attaches the CV to it and sends it out.
Just coming back to the video recording part. So it records that video based on a specific position or field of interest.
Only one question is based on a position. The rest are basic questions that everybody has to answer. Why do you want to come to Germany?
Okay.
How quick,
just for the employer to get to know you.
Correctly, yeah. So if they want to meet you after that, on your profile there's an interview button which they can use to set up an interview.
And then the interview happens on Mira or outside of Mira?
Happens on whatever they choose. It can happen on WhatsApp as well.
Okay.
But it's generally on Teams or Zoom or whatever.
Okay. And this video, is it downloadable and exportable? Can you use this video outside of
the candidates? We don't have that yet. It's not an AI interview, right? Mira asks a question and then you answer, right? So it's just you talking. So I don't know if that's useful, but in the future we might look into it, right? So
I think it's useful because I'm thinking about for example, like footballers who need videos to also show to clubs and stuff. Okay. So they can export this and then use it for maybe some employers outside of the Mira platform,
Right. Okay. Maybe it's just about sending it to the user, right? Like we do that for the CVs already. So when the CV is generated, it's sent to you so you can see. But the videos we just didn't think about that.
Now let's come to something like really helpful for candidates who are considering moving to Germany. What kind of tips and strategies would you recommend to them? Now they know about Mira, how they can use Mira, they can explore Mira to learn more. But in general, what should they know? Like what kind of tips and strategies would you recommend to them?
Right.
Especially regarding the opportunities in Germany, so that, for example, I think that people need to understand that they are needed. If you know that you're needed, then your mindset is different. So if they have this understanding, then what kind of tips and strategies should they know and keep in mind when going through this process?
So first things first, you need to understand basic demand and supply economics, right?
Yeah.
If you're interested in a field where, let's say, media and communication, it's unlikely that you'll find a position, right? Or even an apprenticeship position, especially an apprenticeship position. So it's very difficult. So it's basic economics, right? Now, you could pay some agent to relocate you, or, so you pay them upfront and then they make guarantees, but there can be no guarantee. I don't know why people think that there can be a guarantee. It's finding a job, right? Nobody can guarantee you a job. I don't know how they think they can do that.
It's only the person hiring you that can guarantee you that.
A job. And it's a contract offer. Which even the contract offer is conditional. No German employer gives you a contract where if you don't show up, then they're still on the hook. No.
Why?
Even the contract is conditional. So I don't know why anybody would be guaranteeing you a position. What they can guarantee you though is putting and that's what they do, which is what Mira tries to replicate. Like bringing you up to speed, right? Coaching you and everything, right? And getting you, and then eventually they do that connection to the employers. And then, the employers, just give you the contract and then, you start the whole relocation process begins. So tips and tricks, bring patience, right? Because it's like any other job search, and except for you, it's way harder. And apply for as many as you can. If you're qualified, like I mentioned a few positions here. If you're qualified, then like you can get something really quickly, right?
Yeah.
But most people are not qualified,
Yeah.
right? Either because they didn't bother, they didn't they didn't get the requisite training, or they just, the German way of, looking at qualifications makes it impossible for them to relocate.
Yeah.
If you're qualified in the positions I mentioned, like a truck driver, it's a truck driver's license. It's so easy to relocate to Germany, right?
Yeah.
It's like no German needed, nothing. Just walk and come in, right? So everybody will give you a contract. If you have a truck driver now, I'll take him from you, right? Because I know somebody, you put him on it. So it's that.
And they have the right qualification.
And they have the right qualification. Of course, truck driver needs to have the qualification. So
Yeah,
if you know one, like right now, it's not just me, like a bunch of people line up here to hire them, right?
Yeah.
But most Africans are not, right? So sometimes we are an agency, but we are not an agency. We've built what we consider the Amazon of relocation, of recruiting and, relocating foreign workers. So on the other side, we call them recruiters. It can be a company, it can be an agency, right? On the other side, we have candidates, right? And we also have language schools, and it's a whole ecosystem that is coming together. In addition to those as well, I might say, the German is a requirement, but get as far as you can with the language learning. Do you know that from even the people we're talking about who seem to be so excited to relocate to Germany, out of 10 interviews, if they don't pay, they show up to maybe 4. That's the average we're at. That's actually the main reason.
Yeah, like something as simple as showing up.
Showing up to an interview.
Yeah.
Something as that's the main reason why we had to put to get it, like it doesn't move the needle much, right? Paying us 15 euros a month or the equivalent in your local currency, it doesn't move the needle much. It's because of that's the main reason. When people don't pay, so the average on our software, on our platform, employers, recruiters in general, and candidates was about 40% of show up at interviews.
Okay.
Now, when the employer, like with the Indian state government, they are paying for all the candidates, right? So and they have a whole, it's a state program. They have schools. The government is covering the costs.
Yeah.
But when it's the individuals themselves coming in, we found that they'll show up to only about 40%. I had a guy from Nigeria actually.
Yeah.
Fola Nekand. He had like an electrician degree, fully accepted, etc. Like he and I even spoke the day before, just because let's have a chat, and he didn't show up to the interview. So, he didn't show up to the second interview.
Okay, he showed up for the first, and then won't show up for the second interview.
And then after that, he's writing to me. It's like, what am I? And that the writing afterward is what I don't understand. What am I supposed to do with that? Like, you just didn't, and it's tough. It's tough. So show up to interviews.
I guess it's just as simple as be qualified and show up for the interview. It's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult. Yeah.
It's not that difficult.
Apply obviously to get an interview. If you're coming yourself through Mira, apply. Because without that, obviously sometimes you'll get like what we consider premium positions where, like when it's very high demand, like now with the dental assistant, you get like inbound coming in and saying, hey, this is very, but those are generally positions where you're unlikely to be qualified, which is why they're high demand. But so those ones you can just respond, but without that you need to apply yourself. So we pull in all the high demand positions we can find in Germany, right, from various places, and make it possible so you can apply, right, for those. So
guys, this is only the first part of several series that are going to come. Shane and I were connected, and we are going to be bringing to you on a regular basis vital information which you need when you're thinking about relocating to Germany. So this was just the first part of it. We could go on and on, but I think you get the idea. The first thing is be qualified, apply, and show up.
Show up to the interviews.
It's as simple as that. Shane, any final wordings from you before we wrap it up for today?
Let's leave it on a high note. So the demographics are clear, right? It's not just Germany, it's every developed nation, you call it, right? The West, including the United States, who have found a different way of handling their, they get enough interest that they don't need to bother much. But in Europe, Canada and the rest, it's the demographics, the numbers are clear. The average age in Germany is 48. They claim it might even be higher than that. In Cameroon, certainly it's 18.
Nigeria, it's 19.
Exactly. So we're talking about like massive differences in demographics. And now, I'm a firm believer in capitalism, right? It's not that I believe, it's not a tooth fairy, it's just capitalism is better than everything else we've tried. And what that means is that before an individual lets his business crumble, he will do whatever it takes. If he needs employees, if he needs candidates, if he needs to hire somebody to keep his business afloat, he will do it. And that's at the micro level. And then you go to the macro level. Would the economy as a result of that, let their economy crumble because they cannot know. Don't know what needs to be done to bring people in.
100%.
And then you have the government who I have to give them credit. They are doing a lot, right?
Yeah.
The government with the opportunity card, which Mira can apply for actually.
Yeah.
So if you say, Mira, I want an opportunity card, she'll ask you questions and count your points and then, apply. So you can look at that as well. They're doing things like the opportunity card or the Canadian government who are taking basically everybody, right? That's all because it's not because they like us suddenly after a million years of not liking us. No, it's because at the end of the day, capitalism is the strongest force around, right? And businesses need to grow, people need to have more money, the economy needs to grow, the government needs the economy to grow. It determines everything, in fiscal and monetary policy. So the demand is almost certainly going to increase. That's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is that culturally, we're getting quite close to each other. So, Nigeria is probably the strongest exporter of culture in Africa. It's a small thing, but it adds up to a massive difference.
Yeah.
The fact that people are able to be familiar with you, to familiarize with you through music, through movies, through short form content on YouTube, it means that they are more open to bringing you on, which is what we want. So almost certainly the demand is going to increase over the years. So we hope that we're able to make that relocation for African or from wherever else. Asian, South American, as stress-free, as easy as possible. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Shane. It was a really nice conversation, and I hope that was valuable for you guys too. Please feel free to share this video. I can imagine you have so many comments or rather questions. Please leave them in the comment section wherever you're watching or listening to this. And this is definitely the first, but not the last time you're going to hear from Shane.
I hope so.
Shane,
Yeah. Thank you
so much.
Likewise.